Hi, this is Nova, and I'm going to work on putting the blanket together with crochet. I had started with the baby blue, but then I did not have enough yarn, so I pulled it out before I got too far, and we're going to start again. Now, because I have the right amount of yarn this time, I am going to show you how to start away from the corner. You don't want to start at the corner because your corners are mitered, and when you come around the corner, you're going to be kind of coming around the fold. Okay? So I'm going to try and line this up. Here we go. Because I already have all these pins out. I will show you that once you get through the holes that you created, they're pretty small holes, but they will get bigger because you're pulling the yarn through, and depending on the kind of yarn you're using, it's pretty thick yarn. I'm using, I guess it's called plush yarn. It's a number 6. I've never really knew all this technical stuff about the yarn, but a friend of mine was kind of telling me while I was looking for replacement yarn what to look for, which was very informative. So I am using a number 5mm crochet needle. It does say the best needle for this plush yarn is a 6. I'm using the 5 because I want it to be tighter. So that is why I chose this. If you want it to be even tighter, you can use a smaller needle, and it's just gonna really make it tight and may not make it as nice. So when I get started with crocheting, I make a loop. I don't tie the loop, but I do make it long enough that you can kind of pull it through twice. So there's my loop. I am going to start, kind of where I pulled it out, which is about where my hands are, several inches from the corner. Okay. Need to find my hole that I want to start with. So you're going to pull your yarn through. It is, like I said, going to be really tight because these holes are really small. And this is where, when you leave your tail down a little bit, you can grab both pieces and pull them through your loop. And that's one way to make it secure enough that it's not going to come out. Okay? Now, I might need to turn this around, just because of the direction it's going. Because I want to go this way. Okay. So I'm going to go through the next hole. I was going to try and pull this through again, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. For me, I pull my yarn through so I have the two loops next to each other. And then I wrap around and pull through both loops. And that is the way I choose to do it. You don't have to do it that way. You could do it by going through the hole. As soon as I find another one. Remember, I have a dark apartment. It's really hard to find these holes. You could choose to go ahead. Now, the thing about doing this is you just went through and made your loop up here, okay? So you're going to take your needle and push it through like this, straight through. So you've got it through the hole like that, okay? Then you're going to take your yarn, which is up here, and bring it over and across the two blankets that are together, so like that. And then depending on how you choose to wrap it, I just go like that. So I kind of wrap it around my finger and go like that, pull it up. And then once I do that, you're going to bring your needle back through that hole, and there's your loop. So now you've got two loops again. Now some people will just go ahead and pull this loop through here, and it just makes a smaller stitch. It doesn't really do any different. I think it looks nicer to have the double stitch, so I do one loop that comes through, and then I bring my yarn up as soon as I find it, and I go from the back side and I go around and I pull my yarn through both loops. So that's what I do. Now, because I pulled this out, to start over, my holes are a little bigger and a little easier to see. So you kind of have to gauge how you're putting them together on both sides. So here again, I went from where my loop is. So what happens when you do this is your loop is up here after you pulled your yarn through, and then you're going to bring your needle around, go through the hole, and your loop is going to be down here, and that's what you want. So then you bring your yarn around, bring your yarn through, and again, if you choose to just do one stitch, then you would come back through your loop and start again. I choose to do two, so I'm going to wrap it around again and pull it through. I mean, you can get pretty fancy with this. You can, if you've got enough time and enough yarn, you could easily make a lip on it with some fancy colors and, you know, whatever your imagination has for you. The point of the The stitching is to hold your blanket together, and then anything beyond that is decorative, which is, I mean, this is decorative, but I've seen some really creative stuff out there. So this is not new how to make this blanket. And there are a lot of videos on how to do this blanket. So I'm going to go through again. I'm going to pull it through and through again. Now, I've used up all my old holes. So now I've got new holes, which of course you really can't see them. So you're gonna have to work your way through them. So I tend to separate my fabric. I find my next hole on the top. Try and find my next hole on the bottom. There it is. Oh, I had it. And you're going to poke your needle through. If you're using smaller yarn with a smaller needle, you can go pretty fast on this, because you're just going to go in and out, in and out, in and out. But I'm using a bigger needle with small holes and bigger yarn. There it is. So I have to work my way through it. Another thing that when you're using bigger yarn like mine is that you could end up, that's kind of a cool pattern if I do 3 and then a space and then 3 and then a space. I'll have a little pattern going on. So I've got that one next to the other one, and we're going to do one more like that. There it is. So that's what the top looks like. And that's what either side looks like. So I've got 3, a space, 3, a space, 3. I'm going to do another space. But before I do that space, I'm going to tuck this under. Pretty well. Okay, I'm going to do a couple more stitches. Then I'm going to turn off the camera. We're going to work on this separately. And when I get close to being done with one side, and I'm going to turn the corner, I will get back on and we'll go over how to do the corner. Okay? Thanks for watching. Hello, this is Nova. Gonna work on this blanket, getting to the corner, finally. First thing I'm gonna do is pull out these pins and show you something that I found makes it a little easier to get through these holes if you're using bigger yarn. Okay, so what I've been doing, I'll take my crochet hook and I'll find one of the holes on one side, and then I'll stick it through these holes as if I'm threading or pulling a thread through a cloth. Now what that does is it makes these holes bigger so that you can see them. They're going to get bigger anyway because when you pull that thread through, it stretches them. If you have a crochet hook like mine, which is metal, you'll have this middle section that's bulged out a little bit, and that helps to open these holes up. Now, if you don't have a crochet needle to do this with, a chopstick would work. Chopstick would work really well. Let me think. A pen or a pencil with a lid on it, of course. You don't mark up your fabric with pen or pencil would work. Okay, so once you get so much pulled through, go ahead and stretch it. Pull it back and forth. You know, stretch it a little bit more, and then pull it out. And I don't know if you can see, but the holes are stretched. So do that as far as you're going to stitch until you take out your pins. And then crochet that section and pin your next section. And if you want, do the same thing. I'm just saying that's what made it easier for me to pull this thread through. And the reason I thought of it is because, you know, I'm sticking this needle in there, pulling the thread through, and it's making these holes bigger. Because when I had to undo some of it, yeah, the holes were not small anymore. So I figured, why not just pretend like I'm pulling the thread through, but just stretch these holes. Okay. Okay, so I'm done with that. I'm going to do this corner. So we're going to come to it, and it's going to come pretty quickly. Because once you stretch these holes, you can get through this a lot faster. Now, I am going to try and do another blanket for my grandson, only this blanket is going to be sewed instead of crocheted. And I actually might line it to keep it so that it's a warmer blanket. And I'll go ahead and put that on so y'all see how I do that. Oh, it's pinching out. And then put it back in. There we go. Okay, so that's the top side. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the second half. I'm going to stick my needle through, make these holes bigger. Now, if you used a roller, like what I use to cut the holes are pretty evenly spaced. You can kind of gauge where they are. If you did the holes yourself, if you marked your fabric, then you're pretty good about knowing where your holes are at. And you may not need to do this at all, because if you use the hole punch, the holes are bigger anyway, unless you made small holes. Okay, that's done. So now I'm just going to go ahead, crochet to the corner, and show you what to do. They're definitely easier I have made a decision though. Instead of just doing just one layer around the blanket, I am going to go ahead and do a second layer. And that'll be on top of this layer. It actually will make it look nicer. What are you doing, Hunter? Getting closer. How far lower that is. There it is. Now, I've made this loop really big for no reason. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out and shrink it up. Let's see what I'm doing on this other side. Now, as you get to the end of your corner, if you find that one of your blankets like overshoots it, like say like that. Let's see here so you can see it. Like that. What you can do is maybe take, like what I'm doing is I'm taking like a double here, like I'm going over like that far. I'm pulling it over, and it's gonna crinkle it a little bit, see? But it's gonna even it up. And that happens because fleece, for some reason, maybe it's because it's like flexible or stretchable. Maybe it's because, you know, I don't really measure both blankets to see if they match per se. I do a little bit, but not a lot. I mean, that's what it'll look like if you have to do that. On the one side. If you do a tight stitch, because I was not doing a tight stitch when I decided to go ahead and tighten my stitch. So I'm only doing one through the hole. Then I swing it around and pull it through. It kind of gives you a tighter, snug, kind of like it's hugging your fabric. You know, I actually thought, and I'm sure that that would work if they have it. If I'm going to use this thicker yarn, see if there's a cutting wheel that's spaced differently with bigger cutting slots. So instead of, like, I think mine has 8 on the wheel. Maybe find one that has 5. So the cutting slots would be bigger and make bigger holes. I haven't researched that yet, so, and I just thought of that the other day when I was at Joann's looking at what they had left. Okay, so I'm at the corner. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue as if it's normal. Oh, gotta pull my stitch through. Now when you get to your corner, it's mitered, so until you're ready to actually go over the corner, you kind of want to keep your stitches straight. So don't let him grab your miter and pull your miter in yet. And here is it. Okay. Now your corner. You're going to go ahead and finish up your last hole. And now you're going to go ahead and let it pull in your miter. Okay. Then you're going to go down to your first hole. Which I did not enlarge. There it is. Now you want to be careful with your first hole because, like, see, mine is really close to the edge. It could potentially tear. I don't think it will, but it could. If it does, don't worry about it. You can take the second hole. Yeah. I don't like how big that one is. I want that one a little smaller. Okay, you're gonna go ahead and do that. Pull it up. Now, that's part of your corner. Now you're gonna go ahead and, what I usually do is I go ahead and make an extra stitch. Okay? Then you pull it down. Get your miter, pull it up. Now my corner is not that pretty, so I'm not happy with it. Let me try something else. I need to have the hole right here. Right there. So I think what I'm going to go do is get my hole punch. I'm going to make an extra hole because I'm not happy with how this is bunching up. So by making an extra hole, I can pull that through and then do my extra stitch and then start across this way. So hold on. Hole punch. This one's got a pretty good size little hole area. See, I don't know if you can see that. So I'm gonna try and punch an extra hole. You want to go through both pieces of fabric. Okay, you're gonna have to squeeze it pretty hard. There's my hole. Let's see if that works. Part of my problem is just having a wrong needle. Okay, I'm gonna try and go through this hole, this extra hole that I made. Okay, now if you want to make a straight go down corner, you can, otherwise you can kind of round it. I'm gonna go ahead and make my extra loop and come down to my first hole on the second side. Okay, I'm going to make an extra loop again because you want to get your corner made. Go through your second hole. Oh, well that was quick. Must have lined up pretty good. So there's your corner. Now from here, you just continue down your next side. There's your corner. And with that extra hole, it made it a little nicer, a little bit more the way I wanted it to be without everything sticking through on it. If it does stick through, try and push it under. There, see how I went ahead and pushed it under. If you can't push it under, you can cut this extra fabric with a pair of scissors. Just kind of do a little triangular cut, but be careful not to cut your yarn. One other thing you can do is if you're going to do your second layer, you can kind of play with it if you're using the same color. And go over it a second time. I mean, mine's not perfect. It's also not machine made. And I just carry along. I like this yarn. It's so soft. Used a thicker yarn. I guess it's called a plush yarn. Number 6, by the way, which I found out recently is important. So there you have it. That's how you do a corner. Even if I had everything perfect here, your corner is still going to go the same way. You're going to bring it out. You're going to figure out where you want to start to make your turn, and you're going to make you're going to go up an extra notch or 2, depending on how you want to do your corner. Then you're going to bring it over to your next hole and do it again, and then start stitching. Because you got to make that corner. It's not just going to develop. If you do it too tight, it's going to end up like this. So you have to make those extra loops to bring it around. Okay, so that's it for tonight. Thank you. Bye.